I'm breaking down The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch Season 7. Episode 6 right now. The Mesa investigation is back, and the team's bewildering new discovery at the center of that invisible 2.0-foot bubble is going to force them to ask one terrifying question. Is the bubble containing something, or is it keeping something out? Welcome back. I'm your host, and this is a full extended breakdown of all Mesa'd Up. If you thought Episode 5's Navajo ritual was intense, Episode 6 takes that energy, compresses it into a drill bit, and sends it straight into the heart of the mesa. We're talking about a discovery that doesn't just add a data point. It challenges every assumption the team has made since Season 1. By the end of this breakdown, you're going to understand why this episode is being called the most important in the show's history. Let me set the stage properly. The invisible 2-foot anomalous bubble has been a recurring mystery on Skinwalker Ranch for years. For those who need a refresher, the team first detected this bubble back in Season 3 using magnetometers, ground-penetrating radar, and drone-based sensors. It's not visible to the naked eye. It doesn't show up on standard satellite imagery or even on most aerial photography. But it is measurable. And once you know how to measure it, it's undeniable. The bubble is roughly spherical, approximately 2,000 feet in diameter. It sits partially above ground and partially below, like an enormous invisible beach ball half buried in the earth. Its outer boundary is where a huge percentage of the ranch's strangest phenomena occur: equipment failures, radiation spikes, visual anomalies, and even physiological effects on the crew. In previous seasons, the team has watched drones fly into that boundary and immediately lose GPS lock. They've seen magnetic field lines bend at the bubble's edge, like light through a prism. They've even had crew members report sudden nausea and disorientation when crossing the boundary on foot. But here's the thing. In all previous seasons, the team never pinpointed the exact center of that bubble. They knew its approximate shape. They knew its rough boundaries. They could map its perimeter with reasonable accuracy. But the geometric center, the exact three-dimensional point at the very heart of the bubble, remained elusive. Why? Because the bubble doesn't have a sharp edge like a soap bubble. It has a gradient. The anomalies get stronger as you move inward, but they also fluctuate over time. Some days the center feels like it's shifted a few feet. Other days it's stable. Finding the true, average center required years of data. That's what Episode 6 delivers. Years of data, synthesized into a single, undeniable conclusion. The episode opens in the command center. It's early morning. Coffee cups are everywhere. Travis Taylor, Eric Bard, Thomas Winterton and Dragon are huddled around a bank of monitors. Behind them you can see a whiteboard covered in equations and hand-drawn maps. This isn't a casual meeting. This is the culmination of 7 seasons of work. Eric Bard has done something no one on the team has attempted before. He's compiled every single anomalous reading from every sensor on the ranch, and I mean every single one, stretching back to the very first day of Season 1. EMF spikes, radiation bursts, magnetic field anomalies, audio events, temperature fluctuations, pressure changes, even personal accounts from crew members who reported feeling disoriented or nauseous. Thousands of data points, millions of individual measurements. He feeds all of this into a custom software platform he built himself. A 3-dimensional geospatial analysis tool that can correlate events across time and space. And then he tells the software to find the point on the ranch where the highest concentration of anomalies occurred, weighted by intensity and frequency. The software runs for about 20 minutes. The team watches a progress bar on the screen. Travis paces. Dragon stares out the window. Thomas drinks his third coffee. Finally, the software finishes. It displays a 3-dimensional heat map of the ranch, color-coded from blue, low anomaly density, to red, high anomaly density. The map rotates slowly on the screen, and when it finishes rotating, one thing becomes immediately obvious. The highest concentration of anomalies is not scattered randomly across the ranch. It's not evenly distributed. It's clustered. And the cluster is not centered on the triangle. It's not centered on Homestead Two. It's centered on a specific location inside the mesa. A location that, until now, has never been drilled. Travis leans in. He asks Eric to overlay the bubble's estimated perimeter from previous seasons. Eric does. The bubble's boundary appears as a translucent sphere, and the red cluster, the hottest spot on the map, sits exactly at the geometric center of that sphere. Not close, not approximately, exactly. The margin of error is less than 3 feet. Thomas Winterton speaks first. He says, "So the bubble is real, and its center is real. And we've been walking past it for 7 years. Now, the mesa is not a single point. It's a massive geological formation that dominates the eastern side of the ranch. It's been drilled, scanned, and probed for years. But this specific location, the one Eric's map pointed to, had never been drilled before. Why? Because previous ground-penetrating radar surveys showed that area as having an unusual density signature. The radar waves didn't bounce back cleanly. They scattered. They refracted. They sometimes disappeared entirely. The geology team at the time interpreted that as a fractured rock zone, a jumble of broken stone and void spaces. Not worth drilling into because core samples would be too disrupted to analyze. But Eric's heat map changed that calculus. If the center of the 2,000-foot bubble was right there, then drilling into that fractured zone wasn't a waste of time. It was the entire point. The fractures might not be natural. They might be the result of whatever is causing the bubble. And the only way to find out is to put a drill bit into the center of it. Travis makes the call. They're going to drill directly into the geometric center of the bubble, no matter what the old radar data says. He tells the team, "We've been dancing around this for years. It's time to go in." They bring in a specialized coring rig, the same one they used in Season 5 to pull samples from the triangle area. But this time they position it with military-grade GPS accuracy down to a few centimeters. Eric feeds the exact coordinates into the rig's navigation system. The target depth is 150 feet. Not too deep to be unreachable with their current equipment. Not too shallow to miss whatever might be underground. Right where Eric's model predicted the bubble's center would intersect with solid rock. But before they start drilling, Dragon insists on running a full electromagnetic sweep of the area. He's learned the hard way that Skinwalker Ranch doesn't like surprises. He walks a grid pattern around the drill site, holding a professional-grade EMF meter. The readings are normal, about 1.2 milligauss, which is typical for the ranch during daytime hours. He calls it in. "Clean sweep," he says. "No anomalies." Travis gives the order to start the drill. The engine roars to life. The drill bit touches the ground, and immediately, the EMF meter in Dragon's hand jumps to 8 milligauss. Then 15, then 22. Within 5 seconds it's pegged at the meter's maximum reading of 50 milligauss. Dragon shouts over the radio. "Stop the drill. EMF spike off the scale." They shut down the rig. The EMF drops back to baseline. They wait a minute. They start the rig again. The EMF spikes again. This is not the drill rig generating interference. If that were the case, the EMF would spike as soon as the rig's motor started, even before the bit touched the ground. But here, the spike only happens when the bit makes contact with the earth. Something in that specific patch of ground is reacting to the presence of the drill bit. And that reaction is electromagnetic. Powerful, immediate, and localized. Travis decides to proceed anyway, but with a new protocol. They'll drill in 30-second bursts, then pause for 30 seconds to let the sensors stabilize. Every crew member within 50 feet wears a personal radiation badge and a heart rate monitor. They also position a backup camera crew 100 yards away, just in case whatever happens affects electronics up close. Dragon stands by with a fire extinguisher and a Faraday bag to quickly contain any malfunctioning equipment. The first 30-second burst goes smoothly. The drill cuts through topsoil, then clay, then what feels like sandstone. The core sample from the first 5 feet is unremarkable. Dirt, small rocks, a few roots. Nothing strange. Travis bags it and labels it. Standard procedure. But at the 6-foot mark, the drill encounters something hard. Harder than sandstone, harder than limestone. The drill's torque meter spikes. The bit slows down from its normal speed of 120 RPM to barely 40 RPM. The motor strain is audible. Travis checks the geological map of the mesa. At 6 feet, they should still be in soft overburden. Weathered rock and soil that's been eroded over millennia. They shouldn't hit hard, competent rock until at least 20 feet. Something is wrong. They pull the drill bit out to examine it. The bit is intact. No cracks, no missing teeth. But there are small, dark flecks embedded in the steel. Almost like charcoal, but with a metallic sheen. Thomas scrapes one off with a pocket knife and holds it near a magnet. Nothing. No attraction. He holds it near a Geiger counter. The counter clicks. Not loudly. Maybe 10 or 15 counts per minute above background. But that's enough. Whatever that fleck is, it's mildly radioactive, and it's embedded in the drill bit after only 6 feet of penetration. They send a sample of the flecks to the mobile lab. The lab is a converted RV packed with scientific equipment, spectrometers, microscopes, chemical analyzers. The technician runs the sample through an X-ray fluorescence analyzer, which can identify elemental composition in about 10 minutes. While they wait, they resume drilling. The next 30-second burst goes deeper. The drill passes through the hard layer in about 8 seconds. The torque meter drops suddenly. Then it drops again. Then the drill bit feels like it's spinning in air. Not rock, not clay, air. But the depth gauge says they're at 14 feet. They should be deep in solid rock. The torque meter reads near 0, meaning the bit has no resistance. That means either the rock turned to powder, or there's a void. A void at 14 feet, directly at the center of the 2,000-foot bubble. Travis calls a halt. He looks at Eric over the video link. Eric's face is unreadable. He says, "Travis, if there's a void at that depth, in that exact location, then we just found the heart of the bubble." Dragon lowers a fiber optic camera down the borehole. The camera is tiny, about the diameter of a pencil, with its own LED light source and a pan and tilt mechanism. The feed comes up on a monitor in the command center and also on a portable screen at the drill site. At first, all they see is dark rock walls, scratched by the drill bit. Then, at about 12 feet, the walls change. They become smoother, less fractured. At 13 feet, the camera emerges from the borehole into open space. The cavity is roughly spherical, about 8 feet in diameter. The walls are not natural. They're smooth, almost polished. There are no tool marks, but there's also no natural irregularity. No crystals, no veins, no inclusions. It looks like someone carved a perfect sphere out of the rock, and then sanded the inside to a glassy finish. And on the far side of the cavity, embedded in the wall, is something metallic. I need to pause here because this is where episode 6 earns its name. The team has seen a lot on this ranch. They've seen orbs that defy physics. They've seen radiation burns on equipment. They've seen time anomalies and thermal humanoids. But they have never found a manufactured object inside a natural rock formation. And that's exactly what the camera shows. The object is roughly the size of a shoebox. It's metallic dark gray, with a slight luster. It has straight edges, right angles, and what appears to be a seam, like a lid or a door, running along one side. It is partially protruding from the smooth wall of the cavity, as if it was inserted into the rock while the rock was still soft, or as if the rock grew around it over time. There are no visible fasteners, no rivets, no welds. The surface is uniform. Travis immediately calls for a second camera with a different light spectrum, infrared and ultraviolet, They lower that camera down the borehole. Under normal light, the object looks inert. Under UV light, it glows, not reflects. Glows, a faint pale blue luminescence that pulses slowly. The pulse rate is approximately once every 2.3 seconds. That's the same interval as the Harpine signature they detected at Homestead 2 in Episode 5. The same rhythm, the same pattern, the same frequency. Eric Bard, watching from the command center, goes silent for a long moment. Then he says something that stops the whole room. He says, "That's not an object, that's a transmitter." And it's still on. It's been on for maybe thousands of years. Let that sink in. A metallic box with straight edges, embedded in a smooth-walled cavity 14 feet below the surface, directly at the geometric center of a 2,000-foot, invisible anomalous bubble, glowing under UV light and pulsing at the same frequency as the Homestead 2 phenomena. That is not a coincidence. That is evidence of design, evidence of intention, evidence that someone or something placed that object there deliberately and has been maintaining it for an unknown period of time. The team tries to retrieve the object. But they have a problem. The borehole is only 4 inches in diameter, just wide enough for the drill string and the fiber. Optic camera. They can't widen the hole without risking collapse of the cavity. The cavity's walls are smooth, but they're only about 2 inches thick in some places, based on the radar data. Widening the borehole could cause the entire cavity to implode, destroying the object and possibly triggering who knows what kind of reaction. They also can't send a person down. The cavity is only 8 feet across, and the shaft is too narrow for a human. So they attempt to use a remote-controlled grabber, the same kind used for recovering downhole tools in oil drilling. The grabber is a mechanical claw on the end of a cable, operated by a joystick from the surface. It's designed to grab small objects, valves, sensors, broken drill bits, and pull them up through narrow boreholes. The grabber is lowered slowly. The camera watches. The grabber reaches the cavity. It swings toward the metallic object. The operator carefully positions the claws around the object's visible edge. The claws close. They grip. And then the feed cuts. Not static, not a signal loss. The feed from both cameras, the visible light camera and the UV camera, cuts simultaneously to black. The operator's screen goes dark. The command center monitors go dark. Every video feed from the borehole goes black at the exact same millisecond. However, the audio channel, the microphone built into the camera assembly, continues recording. For the next 23 seconds, the audio recorder inside the borehole picks up a sound. It's not a voice, it's not a hum. It's a low rhythmic clicking, 6, then a pause. 6 clicks, then a pause. The pattern repeats 3 times. Then, after the third pause, the video feed returns. The cameras are still working, the lights are still on, but the grabber is no longer near the object. It's on the floor of the cavity, approximately 3 feet away from where it was positioned. The metallic object is still embedded in the wall, but its glow has changed. Instead of pale blue, it's now pulsing orange. The pulse rate is faster, about once per second, and the wall around the object appears to have cracked. Small fractures radiate outward from the object, like a spider web, extending about 6 inches in all directions. Dragon, who has been watching the radiation monitors, shouts that the Geiger counter is climbing. 30 counts per minute. 60, 120, 240, 480. It's doubling every few seconds. At 300 counts per minute, Travis gives the order to pull everything out. They retrieve the grabber, the cameras, and the drill string. As the last piece of equipment clears the borehole, the radiation reading drops back to background levels. 15 counts per minute. Normal. But the damage is done. The cavity is now open to the surface. The object inside is now cracked and pulsing orange, and the air above the borehole is starting to shimmer. A heat haze. Even though the air temperature is only 65 degrees, the team retreats to the command center to review the footage. And here's where the episode delivers its most mind-bending detail. When they replay the 23 seconds of video blackout, they notice something on the audio channel that they missed in real time. Beneath the 6-click pattern, there is a fainter sound, a voice, but not English, not Spanish. Not any language the team's linguist can identify. It's a single syllable, repeated in time with the clicks. The syllable sounds like Cree or Cray. A hard consonant followed by a vowel sound that doesn't quite match any known human phoneme. The team sends the audio to a forensic specialist who has worked with them before. The specialist isolates the syllable using a spectral filter and compares it to databases of known human and animal vocalizations. No match. But the specialist notes that the syllable contains formants, frequency bands that give a sound its character, that are not produced by the human vocal tract. The formants are too widely spaced. A human trying to make that sound would have to contort their larynx in ways that are anatomically impossible. The specialist's conclusion: the sound is synthetic, engineered. A designed signal, not a natural voice. Eric Bard stares at the spectrogram for a long time. Then he says, "That's data, the clicks are the carrier. The voice is the message, we're not hearing a word. We're hearing a compressed data packet disguised as sound." He spends the next hour trying to decode the pattern. The 6 clicks, he notices, are not uniform. Their spacing varies by milliseconds. He plots the intervals on a graph. The pattern is binary. Short spaces and long spaces. He converts the binary to decimal. The decimal numbers correspond to latitude and longitude coordinates. He enters the coordinates into a mapping program. The program places a pin approximately 400 miles northeast of Skinwalker Ranch. The pin lands on a piece of private property in central Montana. Another ranch. Another investigation site. Travis recognizes the coordinates immediately. He's been there. In fact, he was part of a government-funded study at that location in 2018. He cannot discuss the details on camera, non-disclosure agreements from his previous work. But he confirms that strange phenomena were reported there. The same kinds of phenomena. EMF spikes, radiation bursts, time anomalies, and a similar underground cavity, he says. That site has been under investigation for longer than Skinwalker, and they've never found what we just found. But now we know where to look. This is the moment when all Mesa'd Up stops being a typical episode and becomes something else entirely. The team is no longer investigating a single ranch. They're investigating a network. Multiple locations, each with similar geological features, each with an underground cavity, and each with a metallic object at the center of an anomalous bubble. The bubbles may not be random. They may be connected, and the object at Skinwalker just sent a message to the object in Montana. The system is live. The system is communicating. The episode moves to a late-night strategy session. The team is exhausted but wired. They've been awake for nearly 18 hours. Coffee cups are empty. The whiteboard is covered in new equations, new theories, new questions. They decide on a 2-part plan. First, they need to seal the borehole immediately. They cannot leave the cavity open. Whatever is in there, the object, the radiation, the pulsing energy. It's not stable. The cracks in the wall are growing. The orange pulsing is getting faster. If the object fails completely, the consequences could be catastrophic. They mix a fast setting concrete and pour it down the borehole, filling the cavity completely. The cameras show the concrete rising around the object, covering it, burying it. The orange glow dims. Then it disappears. The pulsing stops. The radiation drops to 0, but the bubble, the 2-foot invisible bubble, is still changing. Eric checks the magnetometer data from the perimeter sensors. The bubble's diameter has decreased by 12 feet since they cracked the object. 12 feet in a few hours. At that rate, the bubble could collapse entirely in less than 6 months. And if the bubble collapses, everything it was containing, energy, radiation, maybe even the object itself, could be released. Second, they plan to return to the Montana site. They need to compare data. They need to see if that site has a similar object, a similar cavity, a similar bubble. And they need to find out if the two objects are communicating with each other. And what they're saying. The episode ends with a quiet moment. Travis is alone in the command center. He's staring at the infrared feed from the mesa. The sealed borehole is visible as a small dark circle on the ground. But above it, the air is shimmering. Not heat, not gas, just shimmering. A distortion like looking through old glass. He picks up his phone. He dials a number. We don't hear the conversation, but we see his face. He's not excited. He's not triumphant. He looks worried. He looks like a man who just realized he opened a door he doesn't know how to close. The screen fades to black. The episode ends. Now let me give you my extended analysis. Because all Mesa'd Up is packed with implications that go far beyond this single episode. First, the metallic object. The fact that it has straight edges, a seam, and glows under UV light is proof of intelligent design. This is not a natural formation. It's not a meteorite. It's not a geological oddity. It's a manufactured object, embedded in a smooth-walled cavity, at the exact geometric center of a 2,000-foot anomalous bubble. That level of precision cannot be accidental. Someone, or something, placed it there, and the fact that it's still pulsing, still transmitting, still responding to the team's equipment, means it's active. It has been active for an unknown period of time, possibly centuries, possibly longer. Second, the network theory. If the coordinates from the binary transmission lead to another ranch with similar phenomena, then Skinwalker Ranch is not unique. It's a node, and the bubbles may be connected. This would explain why phenomena at Skinwalker often seem to respond to events happening elsewhere. A solar flare, a geomagnetic storm, even a distant earthquake. The system is global. And the object at Skinwalker just called another object 400 miles away. Third, the shrinking bubble. The team measured a 12-foot decrease in diameter in just a few hours. That's a rapid change. At that rate, the bubble could be gone in months. And if the bubble is a container, if it's holding something back, its collapse could release whatever has been trapped underneath. The Navajo Shaman's warning from episode 5, do not spend the night in that building, may apply to the entire ranch. The team may be running out of time. Fourth, the audio. That synthetic voice, the binary clicks, the coordinates. This is communication. The object is trying to tell them something. Whether it's a warning, an invitation, or a command, we don't yet know. But the fact that it responded to the team's intrusion, first with a blue glow, then with an orange pulse and a cracked housing, suggests that it is not passive. It is aware, and it is reacting. The question is, was it reacting to protect itself or to signal something else? Fifth, the government connection. Travis's recognition of the Montana coordinates and his mention of a government-funded study at that site in 2018 raises serious questions. How much does the government know about these objects? How long have they known? And why hasn't the information been shared with the Skinwalker team before now? The non-disclosure agreements prevent Travis from speaking on camera, but his expression in that scene says more than words could. He's not surprised by the coordinates. He's surprised that the object sent them. Sixth, the concrete seal. The team made the right call by filling the cavity. Leaving it open would have been reckless. But sealing the object in concrete also means they can't study it directly anymore. They can't retrieve it. They can't analyze its material composition. They can't try to communicate with it again without drilling a new hole. And that might trigger another reaction, possibly worse than the first. They've bought time. But they've also created a new problem. How do you study something you've buried under a ton of concrete? Finally, the human cost. Watch the crew's faces in this episode. Dragon is more on edge than we've ever seen him. Thomas looks like he hasn't slept in days. Travis, the optimist, the engineer, The man who always believes there's a scientific explanation. He looks uncertain. He looks like he's questioning whether the answers they're finding are worth the risks they're taking. That's the subtext of all Mesa'd Up. The mystery is deeper than they thought. The stakes are higher, and the clock is ticking. So here's where we stand after episode 6. The team has discovered the physical center of the mystery. They have photographic and sensor evidence of a manufactured object deep inside the mesa. They have intercepted a transmission that points to another location in Montana. They have watched the bubble begin to shrink, and they have sealed the object away, buying time but also losing access. The next episodes will determine whether they can find a way to study the object without destroying it. And what happens when they finally decode the full message hidden in those 6 clicks. Now I want to hear from you. What was the biggest moment of this episode? The metallic object glowing under UV. The binary transmission leading to another ranch. The bubble shrinking in real time. Or the synthetic voice that no human throat could produce. And what do you think the team finds if they make it to that Montana site? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more episode breakdowns and spoilers. I'll be back with episode 7 as soon as it drops. Until then, keep watching the Mesa. Because the Mesa is watching back.